Hi, my name is Kaylee Bell, and I'm the owner of a boutique podcasting agency called All Things Podcasting. Just like our name says, we handle all things podcasting for our clients. And today I'm going to be talking to you about how to land guest spots on a podcast and how to leverage those guest spots to create leads and build know, like, and trust with your audience, and also find new audiences to promote to. Okay, so why should you be a podcast guest? Being a podcast guest is going to allow you to tap into new to you audiences. These audiences are new to you, but they're already established. So they are already tuning in each week to somebody else's podcast. They already are in the state of mind and the place that they are ready to absorb content and take action. So you're going to find podcasts that are similar-ish to your audience, and you're going to find these people, pitch yourself to be on their podcast, and it's going to allow you to tap into their existing audience. If you have a podcast, being a guest is also the best way to build your podcast listenership. Because if you're a guest on somebody else's podcast, the people who are listening are already podcast listeners. So they are going to be that much more likely to tune into your podcast. You're going to establish yourself as an expert. When you come onto somebody's podcast, the audience automatically knows that you've been chosen for this guest spot because you are the expert in your space, and the podcast host trusts you to convey the content and the message that you're there to speak about. When you're a podcast guest, you're going to share the best 5% of your expertise. A lot of times when I'm looking into following somebody or absorbing their content, I tune into a podcast episode where they've been a guest, not necessarily their podcast, but a podcast episode where they've been a guest, because you're going to get a broad overview of what they're about and what their content is. So it's going to allow you in a shorter amount of time to really get to know the person. And so your audience is going to be able to get that snapshot of you and know if you're someone that they are aligned with and if they want to follow. On that same note, you're going to build a relationship fast. When somebody's listening to a podcast episode, it's like they're having a conversation with you for 30 minutes to an hour. So they're going to get to know your styles of speaking, what you offer, a little bit about you and your family. So it's going to build a relationship really quickly, much more quickly than you can through like social media post or email offers, because hearing your voice and hearing you speak it just accelerates that process. It's also going to allow you to promote your offers. 90% of the time at the end of the podcast episode, the host will allow you to say, here's how you can connect with me. I have a freebie on this exact topic if you're interested in opting in. So it's going to allow you to promote yourself as well as increase your reach. So how do you find the right podcast for you? Because we don't want you going on podcasts that aren't aligned with you or your vision or aren't going to bring in leads to your business. So where I always start is I ask clients, what podcasts do you love listening to? Because typically that gives a really good idea of the podcasts that are going to be a good fit for them. And a lot of times you're going to get like answers like Amy Porterfield. And of course, Amy Porterfield is really hard to become a guest on her podcast, but that gives you a kicking off point. So you're going to be able to go and look at Amy Porterfield's in Apple Podcasts and see at the bottom what podcasts are similar to hers. And that's a great way to find podcasts that would be a good fit for you to be on, because you're going to find podcasts that have similar content but aren't as big time, so it's easier to get onto them. You want to find podcasts who have the same audience as you, but they're not competitors. So say they also work with female mom entrepreneurs, but they offer SEO services and you offer website design. That would be a great podcast for you to get on, because those things align with each other, but they're not in competition with each other. Another thing to think about is, could the podcast host potentially be a buyer or a customer? When you go onto a podcast, you have to think about everything from all the angles. So it's possible that the podcast host at the end of the interview could say, oh my gosh, I really need that. So that's another angle that you can go to when you're looking for guests podcast to be a guest on. So if you really like to work with health and wellness providers, then you can pitch yourself to be on those podcasts, talk about how you help health and wellness providers, with whatever service you offer, mindset or whatever, position it to where it's going to be beneficial for their audience and also beneficial for them so that you can also pitch them to be a customer. So you're really building a multifaceted approach to leverage this podcast guest spot. An important thing to check for before you pitch a podcast to be a guest on is if they're consistently providing quality content. So if the podcast isn't consistent in their content, or if their content fluctuates in the quality, that's a pretty good indicator that they are not invested in their podcast. They probably aren't promoting things correctly. And if they're not consistently providing that quality content, their listenership is going to fluctuate greatly based on what guests they have on or what content they're covering, as well as it is probably going to be on a decline if you see that they've dropped off in providing content. So that just indicates that future episodes may not be listened to as much as previous episodes because they've started to lose their podcast momentum. And also, do they align with your beliefs? You don't want to be on a podcast where their beliefs don't align with yours, because that also probably means that their audience's beliefs don't align with yours. So you always want to make sure that you're talking to your people and that whatever guest spots you have, that your people are also the audience and that you're aligned with them. Okay, so how to get your guest spots. So the first thing that you want to do is create a media kit that contains info about you, your business, what topics you can speak on, and any relevant information about your audience and your following. So this could be how many Instagram followers you have, how many people you have in your Facebook group, how many listeners you have on your podcast, what podcast or platforms you've been featured on before. And this is just like a simple form that you're going to send out attached to your pitch emails. So you're going to create this. We just make them in Canva for our clients. It's going to have a picture, logo, brand colors, all of that good stuff. And it's just going to sum up who you are and what you can talk about. You're going to create template emails. These are going to be 3 separate emails. The first one's going to be pitching yourself to be a guest. And this is going to say, hey, I really liked your podcast. I loved your episode or your content on this. I think that I would be a really good fit to be a guest for you for X, Y, and Z reasons. Here are some things that I can talk about. So that'll be the first email that you're going to send. And that email is going to be highly customized. You really want to individualize this message so that it aligns with that podcast and lets them know that, hey, I did do my research and I think that I can really bring value to your audience. Then you're going to have a follow-up email. This email is going to be more general, like, hey, I just wanted to check in with you. Copy and paste a couple of things from the pitching email. I wanted to come onto your podcast and talk about these things. I think we would be a great fit. Just let me know if you need any more information from me or if I can do anything to help this process along. And then you're going to have a thank you email. This can you can send it after you book the interview and say, thanks so much for allowing me to be on. I just booked my spot. And then you can send some questions that we'll go over in a couple of slides that you're going to want to ask the host. Or this can be a post-interview thank you note where you're going to ask for things like graphics. And you can also do both of these. It's a great way to continue the conversation with the host and make sure that you're building that relationship and getting as much out of the experience as possible. So after you create your media kit and create your templates, you're going to start reaching out to podcast. So like we talked about on the first slide, you're going to talk to podcasts that you're interested in. You're going to talk to podcasts that have a similar audience as you, but that aren't competitors. So things to remember: do your research and personalize your emails. Make sure that you listen to an episode of the podcast that you're going to be pitching to make sure it's a good fit for you and them. Make sure that they have guests on. I've seen way too many times people get pitched to have a guest on their podcast when they don't do guest episodes. Not all podcasts do guest. If it's a podcast you really want to be on and they don't do guest, it's still worth reaching out, just saying like, hey, I noticed that you don't do guest episodes, but I think that we would be a really good fit to be on. Here's the things I could talk about. Would you be interested in? Sometimes it's not that people are opposed to being a guest. It's just not something that's on their radar or something that they have the time to consistently book. So always make sure that you give 2 to 3 specific ways on how you can bring value to their audience. So these shouldn't be cookie cutter, copy and paste. I can talk about these 3 different things. It should be very specific and fine-tuned into their audience and what their podcast is about. All right, so get ready to record. This is something that really like halts people. They get really scared about what they're going to do before they record and if they have everything they need. Okay, so connect with the host first of all. Build that relationship. Make sure that you know where you're at, where they're at, and what is happening. Ask, will it just be audio or will it also be video? Some people don't have a YouTube channel yet, but they're still saving their podcast interviews and video for when they decide to launch a YouTube channel. So just ask so that you know to be prepared, on if it's going to be audio or video. Ask them if they have a list of questions that are going to be asked, or if they have any ideas on specific things they would like for you to talk about. You're going to give them those content ideas, but they might, spur off and find things that they specifically want to ask you about. Do you need to provide a headshot? Typically, you provide a headshot to the podcast so that they can create promotional graphics, and then they will share those with you, which leads us to, will graphics be provided? If they are not providing graphics, which is pretty atypical, then I would recommend creating your own. Just go into Canva, create a graphic with you, the title of the podcast episode, or what you're going to talk about. And you can also ask them for an audio clip to create an audiogram, and you can do that through Wave or Headliner, and it just allows you to play a little piece of the audio with a sound wave and caption so that you can share it on social media and draw people in. And where can I find show notes? Most podcasts have show notes listed on a website where you can direct your audience there, because everybody uses different podcast platforms to listen to. So sharing like the Apple link, the Spotify link, there's so many links that you would have to share to encompass everyone. So typically I recommend just sharing the show notes link and then saying, listen to the episode here and read the show notes, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform by searching for the name of the podcast and then say we're episode 160. So that's the things that I would ask the host before you record, so that you can kind of be prepared and know what you're getting into and what assets you're going to need to provide. As far as space and supplies, you need to find a quiet space to record. I typically recommend doing a sound test. So recording a quick snippet of you talking, you can record anything you want. You could do something that you're going to repurpose into an Instagram story or whatever, and listen to it and see if there's background noise, if there's a washer or dryer running, if there's dogs barking, traffic, stuff like that, so that you can make sure that your space is quiet, and also listen for echoes. If you're in a wide open space with high ceilings and wood floors, a lot of times you'll get an echo. Get your mic ready. So the biggest thing is to not use the mic that is installed into your laptop or computer. It just comes out really grainy, and they typically don't have the best quality mics on your computer. So this is my mic right here. It was $35 on Amazon. You can buy one really inexpensively. You can get a standalone one. You can get a headset. Or you can really just use the Apple headphones that have the little mic on them, and that's going to greatly improve your audio quality, and going to be much better than using your computer mic. And a lot of times hosts will send you a form that says, please use an external mic, here's a link to one that we like that's affordable. But really, any external mic that you get online, read the reviews, make sure that it has good reviews, or use headphones that have a mic on it, and you should be good to go. Also make some notes, just key points of things that you want to remember to talk about, that you told the host that you're going to talk about, and kind of just break it down like an outline, like your classic essay outline that you would use to write a paper in high school. You don't want to script it because that's going to come across in the audio. It's going to come across scripted. So just make some basic notes on what you want to talk about and the order in which you want to talk about them. And if the host is asking questions, just jot down some answers to the questions so that you don't draw a blank during the interview. Leveraging your guest spot. Okay, so here's where things get fun. So before the episode goes live, you're going to want to create hype on social media. Just, with the day you're recording, post on your Instagram stories, recording with @ the host names for @ this podcast is Instagram. And it just like gives some teasers of, we're going to be talking about this, and, can't wait for you guys to hear this portion. So just make sure that you're like building hype before the episode goes live. Once the day that the episode goes live, you're going to share graphics and show notes on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, all of the places, so that you can start getting traction to that podcast episode, because the more people listen to it, the better it is for you. Also tag the host. This is a great way to further link your two audiences by cross-sharing these things. On the host post, as well as your post, respond to comments. I always say to you always be the person to get the last word. So ask a question, try to continue the conversation, and never leave a comment unresponded to. Be sure to provide a call to action at the end of the podcast episode, as well as in all of your posts. So if you enjoyed this episode, come check out my website, follow me on Instagram, book a discovery call, whatever you want that call to action to be. And that's something that you might want to discuss with the host, as far as what call to action you use at the end of the episode, because some people are okay with freebies and some people are okay with go ahead and saying to book a call. So it's really just up to the host on what they like to do. But as far as the Instagram posts and stuff, you can do whatever call to action you feel like best aligns with the episode. So another really fun thing that you can do is a week after the episode goes live, or the day the episode goes live, you can do a live Q&A to answer people's questions about the episode and also give a recap. A lot of our clients, when they have guests on, they actually will do a live inside their Facebook group and have the guest back in to answer the questions about the episode. And that just helps build community, helps facilitate the listeners to continue listening to the podcast, and also allows them to get to know you even better. And share the links in Facebook groups. So whatever topic that you talked about on that podcast episode, go to relevant Facebook groups and search for that topic in the search bar, and then respond to those posts saying, oh my gosh, we just did a podcast episode about this, and I think it would be really great for you to go listen to. We answer, these questions, and then share the link. A lot of Facebook groups have issues with you sharing links to book a call or links to your website, but they're totally okay with you sharing a link to a podcast episode. So it's a great way to kind of work around those rules, and also drive traffic to the episode and to yourself as well. And the podcast host is going to be really grateful for you doing these things, because it's helping you help them help you. So it's all cyclical. You're all helping each other. They're going to be posting, you're going to be posting. And so it's really going to create some traction around the episode. All right. So if you're saying, yeah, that sounds great, but I don't have the time to reach out to these people, to research what podcasts are good, to be a guest on, to listen to an episode, to come up with what I'm going to talk about, don't worry, we've got you covered. We'll handle all of the back-end pieces of getting you featured on amazing podcasts. We do all of the research, the pitching, the follow-ups, the booking, all of the things so that all you have to do is show up. If you are saying being a guest is awesome, but I want to launch my own content and lead machine, podcasting is for you. Reach out to me about our full service podcast launch and management services, and we can create a podcast that is a lead generation machine for you and also a content generation machine. You can take one podcast episode, use it as a piece of macro content, and break it down into a blog post, Facebook and Instagram posts, Facebook and Instagram stories, TikToks, LinkedIn post, all of the things. So you use that one piece of content, that one podcast episode, and it gives you a whole week's worth of value-packed content to share with your audience. So I would love to hear from you all. If you have any questions about being a guest and how you should find those podcasts to be a guest on, or if you have any questions about podcasting in general. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Just shoot me an email. Thanks.